Hi, welcome to Stat Graphs Part 2. In this part we're going to look at histograms. I want you to make sure that on your calculator stat mode up there is highlighted like it is on this one, and remember to do that we hit 2 or scroll to that position with the scroll button there. When that is highlighted, I'd like you to hit execute and you'll come to this screen here. Here we input data into lists, and you can see here the first 4 lists all have data in them from the earlier presentations. Now I suggest you leave that data there, but if you did want to eventually delete it, we would go to the next page by hitting F6. So let's do that and see what's there. We have 2 options for deletion of entries. First of all, del, which we can choose by hitting F3, or del all, which is delete all, which we can choose by hitting F4. So one deletes single entries, and del all by hitting F6 here will delete a whole list if an entry in that list is highlighted. Alright, so I think we'll leave the data there for the minute, and if we return then to the earlier page by hitting F6, we will come back here, and now let's scroll across the screen using this button until list 5 comes up. So I'd like you to do that, and so we have list 5 first entry highlighted here, and so here we have the result of a survey. There's been concern about the high levels of sodium found in bread products, and health professionals warn that the level should not exceed 400 milligrams per 100 grams of product. They surveyed the 30 largest bread product manufacturers in Australia and found the average sodium content for their products. And here we have the 30 pieces of data, the milligrams of sodium per 100 gram of product. So I want you to enter these 30 pieces of data into list 5, as we did before, and you might like to pause the presentation here as we want to move on. So you might pause it, and as we go on to the next stage, we have the data in list 5 here. We can choose to graph this again. This time we're going to use a histogram. So there's the graph option. So if we hit F1, we move to this window which you saw before, and again to set up the graph on the calculator we will hit F6, and if you do that we're back to where we left it in an earlier presentation. Strat graph 1 is selected, so we can leave that there. But we want to change the graph type in this next row to a histogram, because the data was continuous and suitable for grouping, so that we can get a good picture of the distribution of the average sodium content in the breads available. So I want you to scroll down using this button to graph type, so it is highlighted. So we're to here now. Stat graph 1 is highlighted, so we can now change that option, and let's have a look. We need to actually go to the next window because our histogram type is not there. So next window we will hit F6, and here we have it, histogram. So to choose that option we'll hit F1. If you do that, now we have histogram as the graph type. Now the list entry also needs to be changed because we had our data now in list 5. So I want you to scroll down so that the X list is highlighted. So if you do that, highlighting the X list here, and we want to change that, so we will choose list by hitting F1, I'd like you to do that now. And into this position we have the option, so we will hit 5, and if you do that and then hit execute, we will come to this window then. So our setup is now complete. StatGraph 1 has now become a histogram working with data in list 5, each occurring with a frequency of 1. And so that's what we did enter into list 5. So we're happy with that. Then hit execute, and we return to this screen. And now in this screen we need to select what graph we're going to draw. So to do that we come down and hit F4. Now StatGraph 1 is draw on, so that's good, we'll give that a tick. But the next one is on as well, StatGraph 2, and we don't want that. So I want you to scroll down to StatGraph 2. So it is highlighted here. And we now want to turn that off, so here we have the off in here. So we'll choose that by hitting F2. So now it's set up correctly. StatGraph 1 is on, StatGraph 2 is off, and StatGraph 3 is off, which is what we want. Now we're ready to actually draw this graph, I think, so we can hit draw or execute, either one. So I want you to do that now, and we come to this screen. The calculator has set the histogram group intervals so that we have 10 groups. This is the way it's programmed. When that happens though, you can see here it's starting at 300, the first value, which is okay, but our width, to get exactly 10 intervals, the calculator has had to make a width of 44.5. That's not very convenient to draw a histogram with intervals of 44.5. So I want you to change that to 50 by scrolling down to that width line using the scrolling button here. If you do that, in this position now, we want to hit 50 or enter 50. So I want you to put 50 in there, and you may then hit execute, and the histogram is drawn. This is a histogram representing the milligrams of sodium per 100 grams of bread product. Now if we wanted to draw this accurately on our own graph paper, we again, if you remember, want to choose trace. So to do that we need to hit Shift followed by F1. So I'd like you to do this now, and we see now the crosshairs have appeared on the top of the first column, and also it's got a reading of 300, which means this group starts at 300, and we know we've set the width at 50, so it goes from 300 to 350, so that value in there would be 350. And we can also see that the frequency of scores in this group is 2. There are 2 scores in that first group. Okay, so we can continue across all the columns and find out what each one represents by using the scrolling button again. So I want you to scroll across there, and now we see the crosshairs sitting on the second column, and the reading is, as we said before, this group starts at 350 and will go to 400, so this value here would be 400. And in this group there is also 2 scores. As we can see, the heights of the 2 groups are the same, 2 columns are the same. So you can continue right across all the columns and then make up your own graph on your own graph paper quite accurately there. So now I want you to hit exit in here. And if you do that now, hitting exit, then we go back to this window, and if we hit graph again, so we want to get graph 1, so hit F1 and reset the width and so on. So I'd like you to reset the width and then hit execute. We get the histogram back again, and now I wanted to mention just one thing here. Have you noticed one there down here? As with the other graphs from part 1, I want you to select that by hitting F1, and we have all the set of statistics that we had back in stat calculations part 1 and 2. So here are all the statistics that we want, and we also have a graph available to us. So the 9860 is really a great calculator for working with statistics. It gives us everything so easily. So I hope you've enjoyed the stats presentations, and I hope to see you again when we look at other modes on the 9860.